Started. Yes. I hope you can see my screen and I'm audible. So let's start. So welcome everyone for this event organized by AWS User Group Madurai. So as you all know, uh, we are an user group who take up new initiatives and new events and new challenges, and we have been the most active in the user group community. As we all know, like AWS User Group Madurai has been nominated as the user group of the year for the third consecutive year, like among 187 other user groups across the APAC regions. So this nomination is a testament for our user group, like showing a continuous growth, collaboration, and the passion that we have for our amazing community. So I want to highlight few of the initiatives which we organize and conduct in AWS User Group Madurai. So one of the main initiative was of ours is Creators Club. So where people can publish their learnings. It can be either a blog, video, or maybe a post, so which others feel informative. Also, we have a leaderboard maintained for all the submissions made by the users. So there is a certain scoring criteria that we have. So if you go to our website, AWS UGMDU website, so there you can just get all the details of how things work in Creators Club and what are contents that you can submit here to get rewarded. So here you can just go and see like who are all the members that are currently leading the leaderboard and what how much points they have. And here it's a table that tells briefly about your redemption of points, like what can you redeem. And here is a point system that we follow, which we use to score the submissions made by the users. So there are different categories in which we categorize the user submissions, and each submission that carries a range of points. So we'll go through your submission and we'll award the points based on the quality of the content. So even for event attendance, we are providing points. So even each minute things which you do for our community matters, and we respect all of that. So this is brief about the leaderboard and Creators Club and how you can make use of it and earn points and redeem swags. So the next, I want to talk about the new initiative which we are starting from this month. So Builder Skill Sprint initiative. So this initiative, uh, let me share. I hope my screen is visible. So this new initiative will be a month-long journey. It will be focused on a specific theme. Say, for example, this month we are focused only on AWS DevOps. So this event is not only restricted to students. So either you are a student or a working professional, like beginner or advanced, you can take up this sprint. So it is designed for everyone. So how this will work is like we'll conduct 1 to 2 virtual sessions per month on Zoom with expert speakers and with live demos. After the demos, we'll have a hands-on challenge posted. Like this will be running throughout the month. You can complete it. So how you can make the most of this event is like attend the session, complete the challenge, and you can earn the AWS user group points. So we'll monitor the attendance from the virtual events that we conduct, and each challenge completion will earn you points. So which will be displayed in the leaderboard after the month end. So make use of this new initiative, like complete this challenge and earn points, and we'll be also issuing digital badges for the successful completion of a challenge. So each session will be under 2 hours, like it will be a perfect fit in your weekend without disturbing your actual schedule. So this is about the new initiative which we are starting from this month. Hope you guys will give more engagement and participation to this event. So I'm passing in to Lokesh now to share a few words about the CHAMPS program that we have. And
Thanks, Bhuvan. Let me continue. Myself, Lokesh. I'm core member of AWS Fabric. I just take 2 or 3 minutes from today, so we can continue the session. Or see you. First of all, thank you for joining. Many have been joined after the office hours. Many have been gone to colleges today and joined after that. First of all, thanks for joining. I like to tell some initiatives we have been taking out around the SAMS program. First of all, SAMS program has been initiated for the people who don't have access to the cloud clubs. First of all, they don't know how to apply for cloud clubs and many things going on, and they need a regional speakers and many things have been going on. So we took the initiative, and around first year we have taken out 3 to 4 colleges. Nowadays, it's been expanded to 7+ colleges. From the 7 colleges, the 2 colleges have been upgraded into cloud clubs, and we have been helping the students to apply for community builders and many programs, so on, like scholarships, ML scholarships, and etc. And we have been providing them guidance in the technical manner and non-technical, like organizing event and making them as a speaker for their own event. Instead of allocating a speaker from our side, like we will be allocating speakers then and so, but we will be making main motive of the initiative is like to create a speakers among themselves from the college. It's the main initiative that we give technical knowledge, then some non-technical skills like leadership skills, so they can run the SAMS program more initiative. These are the main insights of the SAMS program. And for 2025, we have opened the cohort for SAMS program. If some students interested to join, otherwise some people like their college members or their friends of the college needs to join, I will drop the link in the chat box. You can ask them to join, inform them to apply. We will shortlist and get on board. Thank you. I like to welcome Mr. Vasan for today's session. I like to give a small intro on Vasan. Vasan is an experienced IT professor with 10 years in industry of experience, focusing on cloud technology as a major. He is a cloud expert who is a passionate about using cloud computing to improve innovation and efficiency. He holds around 6+ AWS certification, showing his strong knowledge of AWS skills. And also, he is certified as a Terraform associate, highlighting his skills in the infrastructure as a code. In his job, Watson has taken on DevOps role, helping development and operation teamwork work together smoothly and better manner. In his work, has improved software delivery to better automation and contribution in continuous development side. Outside of his work, Watson knows to share his technical knowledge and other knowledge also. He runs a popular YouTube channel called Tamil Tech Page in Tamil region language. You can check it out. I will drop the link in later in the meeting section. With over 11,000 subscribers, in his videos helps the people to understand the technical skills in more simple and easier manner in Tamil itself. You can check it out. Later I will be dropping the link. He also loves enjoying traveling and learning different cultures, new things, and meeting new people. With his rich experience in the IT and strong cloud skills, loves for teaching, and unique interest, Watson brings an well-rounded and press out of what he does. Thank you. Watson, can you take on the section?
Hey, thanks, Pubalan. Thanks, Logesh. Thanks, everyone, for joining in this weekend. Am I audible? Am I clear?
This was audible.
Yeah. Let me share my screen. I think I need to send a request. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so you guys see the AWS CLI screen? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So as Logesh and Pubalan mentioned, this month, as part of AWS User Group Madurai, we planned as part of the AWS DevOps month. So what we are planning in this series is like we plan for 2 sessions. One covering the AWS CLI and the another session covering the AWS SDK to understand its use case. And both sessions would be focused more on the hands-on aspect and then also in terms of like best practices. So any questions, do post it in the chat. Maybe by end of the session I can cover it up, and all the commands and sessions which we covered today, I will make it as a blog post and then share it so that when it goes live, you guys have the handy notes with you. Right, so these are the thanks. Already they gave the clear introduction about myself. Thanks for that. So this is my LinkedIn handle, Keerthivasan Kannan. So if anyone want to give a connection request, you can do it. I'll also post it in the chat request. And the 2 YouTube channels which I run, one on the tech page which is around which is on Tamil, and then on the another one which is eViday, which I do content, the same AWS DevOps content, which is in English language content. So if you're comfortable in Tamil, you can do check it out on TechPage. If you're good at suitable for English, then you can do a check at the eViday channel part. So without wasting time, let's go for it. So so before starting the session, before even deep dive into like AWS CLI part, would love to understand like how many students are here, how many working professionals here, and how many have already dealt with AWS CLI in your nature of work. So if you already have an experience with CLI, do comment yes, or if you're watching it first time, or like if you have no, then you can post a simple no, so that we know like the audience said, and then we can take it from that. Okay, so here most of the no. So maybe like how many of you are aware about what is IAM as a service before even going into the CLI, the identity access management as a service? Okay, yeah. So many people have identity as a service. They are good at it, right? So why I ask this question is, so everyone knows IAM, but then how that is going to be related as a CLI, right? So we'll start from that, and then we'll deep dive into the CLI, because CLI as a tool itself is like pretty straightforward. But then what you would need to understand is that what are the best practices that you need to use while handling the CLI part. Right, so a quick thing first. So what are the components of IAM? So everyone, like most of you know, the components user, which is pretty much like any developer or your user account, where you go and log into the console, and then you have policies. So that's where you provide the permissions, and then you have groups, which is groups can consist of more than one user, and then you have roles, right? So have you heard about these terminologies prior? Users, groups, policies, roles, how it goes hand in hand? Okay. So what generally happens is, so by default, users within any organization, they won't be having any specific permission. So when you create a user, the user is not going to have any permission at all, even for read access, right? So they can just log into the console, and then from there you are going to provide the access to the user with the policy. Either the policy is being mapped via the roles, or you map the policies to the groups, and then the groups would be like mapped to the user, and then they get the permission. So that's how it's going to be work on it. So when it comes to CLI, since CLI is like very critical part, because when we talk about without even going into the console, and they can log in, which means we need to provide them and a sort of key called access keys or credentials, right? So then if the key is going to get leaked, then there is a potential harm for your business. So that's a very security concern. So from security aspect, we need to ensure like what are the best practices before even you kickstart into the CLI aspect. So for demo, what I have done is I have created a user. So if I go into the IAM service, and so I created one user for the demo purpose, and then we also created two roles for the demo purpose. So the user which we created is AWS MDU-demo. So this is going to be the user whom I'm going to use, and then I have created an access key. So you would once you create an user, you are going to go and create access key. Then you would be getting the key ID and then the secret access key. So don't share it with anyone, right? So and then I have mapped a specific policy for this one. So in this policy, if you see, I haven't provided any access to the services. So the policy just says I'm letting the user to assume two different roles. I created a custom roles for this. One is an S3 admin, and the another one is the dev user. So as part of this session, I created one user with no access to any other service. So with just as a user, they can't perform any specific activity, but by assuming these two roles, they can perform various separate activity. So two roles I created. One is the S3 admin and the another is dev user. So if I go into the roles, let's see what are all the permissions is being given to those two roles which we created, right? So one is the S3 admin. As you could see, this is being given only the trust entities of this specific account number. So this is nothing but the account number of the self account itself, which means any principal from this specific account, principal in the sense it can be a user, can be assume this role, provided the user has the equivalent IAM policy. The previous step we have seen, we have provided the STS assume role permission to assume this role, and here I have mapped the full access policy. So with S3 admin permission, the user can perform all the actions related to S3. And then we also created one more role, which is dev-user. And here you could see I have provided him the user the EC2 full access, the Lambda full access, and then the IAM read-only access. So if the user is assuming this specific role dev user, they would be getting all these specific access. And if the user is assuming the S3 admin, they would be getting only the S3 admin privileges. So any questions so far? This would be the very pretty basic when we start with dealing with CLI, like how we are going to handle it. Any specific doubts so far? Okay. So even if you have any doubts, do ask in the chat. I will have a continuous monitoring, and then I will try to answer then and that. Okay. So the prerequisite is going to be you would need to install the AWS CLI in your terminal. So either it supports all the major operating system. If you're in Linux, Mac OS, same way for Windows, right? So currently I'm using Mac OS. So I have installed using the specific instructions. Even it supports brew. So if you're in Mac OS, you can quickly install it using the brew install AWS CLI options as well. And then you can get it verified using AWS a demo command, something like S3LS, and it's going to give you the specific details, right? So if you see when I try doing the command, so before even doing the command, so this is how the syntax is going to look like when we deal with the CLI itself. So it's going to be followed by the AWS, and then the service name, what service you are going to do, and then what actions you are going to perform. So we don't need to remember each and everything. So when we start with we would be highly relying on the documentation itself. So AWS CLI supports almost all the services. Like for example, let's if we take S3 as a okay. Nehal, I'll come back to your question. So first I'll go with this. So for example, if you go with the S3 as a service, then if you go into this, if I go into AWS S3, then here you can see that what are the options available for the specific commands. And then it also provides you with an example for each and every action. So the syntax is going to be AWS, the service name, and then the command. So what are the commands available when it comes to S3? Even those being listed. So here we tried using LS as an option, and then it goes like what are all the mandatory parameters, and everything is being clearly documented. So this would be a generic pattern for any command, any service. The AWS follows the same structure. So it's a very good question, Mehul. Like why or when do we use the CLI over the UI, right? So whenever you need to perform the automation part, or you want to do a bulk query, let's say you have 100 users in your system or in your account, and then you want to do a cleanup based on like who logged in, who haven't logged in for like past 90 days. You want to do an automation to clear them up. So rather going into the console, you can do the automation part with a scheduled job, so that that operation can clean up your users who are inactive. Same way, you have an EC2 instance and you want to stop and restart it for cost optimization. Like say you want to stop the EC2 instance at Friday night and then start it again on Monday morning, so that you can reduce the cost over the weekend operations. Or you want to know like how much an S3 bucket is consuming the data stored, or you want to quickly upload a file from your local system to the S3 bucket. So without even going to the console, all the things which all these automations you can do with the help of AWS CLI. So it's going to help you in terms of automate the repeated task, schedule it without any manual interruption. So the possibility of the CLI is infinite. So that's the major benefit going with CLI or any SDK specific automations mechanism over the GUI. Does it answer your question, Nihul? Good. So now I have tried, running the command using AWS S3LS, and then you could see that it's gave me the option in terms of this is being assessed denied, which means because I haven't configured my credentials, so when I try to perform the AWS API calls, it couldn't identify my identity, right? So now to know, or it also gives me the default one. It could see that this is the one which I previously used, so it could be able to see that it's trying to use the user ARN of the AWS MDU demo, right? So it gives the part, and then this specific user is not having the access to list my bucket. So this is exactly we saw, right? Because we couldn't do the specific operations of it. So now what I'm going to do is, in order to perform this specific operations of list all, I'm going to assume the role of the S3 admin from this specific users. So, so taking a step back, so going back to the diagram. So this is where you go conceptually strong, right? When it comes to the CLI part. So you as an user by default, so in this case, it's going to be the AWS MDU demo, has no direct privilege, but then by this user, assuming to the role called S3 admin, the user can start doing the specific part. So now how can I assume this specific role? Again, so the service we are going to use for this is STS. So for easy purpose, let's search with the documentation to kickstart it. So if I do AWS STS CLI, then the action we want to perform here is for assuming the role, right? So we have this assume role action. So I'm going to use AWS STS followed by the, I don't know why it says this. Maybe I'll quickly go into the another one. So if you see, like I'm going to the assume role, and then it talks about two different things, right? So one is the role ARN, and then the role session name. So whichever is being listed within the brackets in the documentation, those are optional field. So you don't need to mandatorily join them. Whereas whichever the one which are being mentioned as part of hyphen, so those things are the parameters that are mandatorily required for it. So now if you're someone first user, right? So you haven't you just install the CLI. So here you can understand that it's somehow identified my user. But if you're the first time you're installing the CLI, the AWS might not know who this user is coming from. So for that, the first step you would do is you would start with something called as AWS configure, and then that's going to ask you for the access key ID. And this access key ID, you would be exactly getting it from the IAM console. So when you go into the IAM console, if you remember, we talked about the user, AWS MDU, and then here you would be creating the access key ID, right? and then you would get the values. So that's where your journey of the CLI would actually officially begin. And then once you enter the next one, it's going to ask you for the secret access key, and again it will get from the same values. And then it's going to ask you for the default region name, which means whenever you execute a CLI command, what region the command should execute. So because whenever you do in terms of the console, right? So AWS has its own region, and then it's going to query it. So if you're new to the concept of region and zones, so here if you see that like scenarios like EC2 instance or Lambda or like region specific services. So when you say list all the Lambda in my account, then you need to specify the region, so that all the Lambdas in that specific region would be get listed it out. So that's why when you define the CLI, you are going to provide the region name. So in this case, I have provided the region name of EU West 1. So based on your use case, you will be providing the specific one. So EU West 1 is going to be Ireland region. And the next one is the output format. So when you run the API, when you run the CLI commands, what is the expected output format you would need. So again, I will show as a demo, like what are the formats available and which one would come handy on what scenarios when you do in real time. So this is the first thing we talk about, like when you configure the CLI part. So once this is done, so you are going to onboard. We tried performing the operation of S3LS. Then as we spoke, as an user of this specific user, I don't have direct permission to perform any S3 calls. So to do that, I need to do the service. So it's going to be AWS service name, and then the operation is going to be assume role, and then we need to provide the let me take that. So I need to provide the role ARN, and then I need to provide the ARN of this one. So this is the ARN of the role, and then I need to provide the session name. So if you see the documentation, it would be exactly the same one, right? So AWS STS assume role, provide the role ARN, and then the role session name. So I just provided a session name, a CLI session for this one. So if I do this, I'm going to get the access key ID and then secret access key and then the session token. So ideally, I would need to copy all this stuff and then store it in the credentials file. So what I'm going to do is, since it's the role part, I'm going to take a shortcut of it, which is I'm going to use a quick script for it, which is going to be the evaluate script. Let me bring it up. So let me bring the markdown screen with you so that you guys have know like what we are into it, and then you can follow the step-by-step part, right? So what we are doing here is, so for now we want to try to do the assume role, and then we got the credentials. But then getting the credentials is not just going to be sufficient, but then we want to use the specific keys configured to our credentials file. So what we are doing here is, so if you see, so here in the AWS IAM will be constant for a user, right? And session ID changes for each session. Yeah, so the access key and then even when you assume role, it's going to be the temporary credentials you would get. So even if you do it after 15 minutes, the same key would be won't be valid. So it's going to be the temporary credential. That's the benefit of STS, so that even if your token gets leaked, it will be short credentials, it will expire. That's the best practice to follow when you go with this specific approach. Yeah, does it clear? Okay, so what I'm doing here is, so here I'm using the same STS command, and then with the query parameter, I'm fetching the access key ID, secret access key, and then session token. And then there are two ways to set the credentials. So one is you do AWS configure and then enter the values. The another way is you can do the export command and then pass the value. So AWS SS key ID, and then the secret SS key, and then the session token. So here it's going to what we do here. So this is going to be stored in the variable $1, $2, and $3, and then those values been passed, and then set it as the local credentials part. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do here now is okay. So before even doing that, let's see one more command, which is to know who am I, right? Because now I'm by running this command, we know that this is the user one. But before even assuming this role, or like post assuming role, we need to know, right? So for that, we will be using the command called AWS, the same thing STS, and there is one option called get caller identity. So the get caller identity is going to give you the option in terms of to say what is the current user or current role you have assumed. So currently, as of now, you see AWS is treating me as the specific user, AWS MDU-demo, but then post running the, come on, let me just recopy it, sorry for that. Post running the query or post setting the token for this. So if you see here, what I'm doing is I'm assuming the role and then fetching the specific credentials and then exporting it as a local variable, right? So once this is being done, and if I try to run the specific get caller identity, you could see that now AWS is no more considering me as a MDU user demo. It's going to be considering as a role S3 admin with a session unique ID of CLI-session. So now if I do AWS S3 LS action, then now you could see that I could get all the values of my S3 bucket list. So let's say you have been given a task in your company, like fetch all the bucket name that starts with EBDI, right? So you don't need to go into the console and then copy paste it. What you can simply do is you can use the Linux skrill to say I just need with the bucket name that consists of EBDI in it, or maybe you can also use regex. I think it gives regex, I think. Yeah. So to say that the bucket name that starts with part of it, I think it's grep-r or something. There is some parameter with the grep to say that I forgot it. But you got the context, right? Like you can use the scripting flow to make your life more easy in terms of paste the details rather going into console and then fetch it out of each and every commands. So now let me try to run a specific command relates to IAM, right? Or each time you don't need to go and check for the documentation. What you can also do is you can use AWS IAM followed by the help, so that you can get it in local itself. So this is something similar like any Linux system you would do, right? Like you use man command. Same way within the CLI, you can know like what are all the commands options available. So in case if you're attending for interview, if they restricted, internet access, or if the interview says like you are not supposed to go outside the terminal to prove your AWS skill, then you will be using this specific command or the help option to know like what are the things you can do with. So let's say for example I want to list all the user profile, right? So then you can come down, so it's going to be list account alias, list groups. Maybe let's try using list groups, right? So if I do AWS IAM, and then if I say list groups, the credentials is going to fail because here I currently assume the role specific S3 admin, and then this specific S3 admin doesn't have the permission for the IAM related read access, as we saw in the initial. So I created two roles, right? One is S3 admin for the demo, and then the another one we have is dev users. So now people can say like, okay, let's quickly, least privileges is exactly Vishnu. So let's say what I'm trying to do is, okay, so let me try to assume this role dev users. And what I'm going to do is, instead of S3 admin, I'm going to say dev user, which is the another role which we created, and then I'm going to run the same part. Maybe even I can change the CLI session to something like dev-user. So what happens now is you get an access denied. Why? Because currently AWS is treating me as this specific role, not as the specific user. So the user has the permission to assume the S3 admin and the dev user, whereas the role, the S3 admin, doesn't have the permission to assume this dev user role. You got it? You got right how it works. So since this specific user only having the permission to assume this dev user, and currently my identity is S3 admin, and when I try to assume this role, it said, hey, you don't have the specific permission to do this specific action. So what I'm going to do now is, there are multiple ways to do it. So one is like you can do unset, like all the ones which you have done. So let me do it. Like I'm going to do unset, and then I'm going to configure my credentials back. Let me do it, and so, and then if I do with AWS STS get caller identity, then you could see that we are back as AWS MDU demo account, and this user having the permission for assuming the role dev user. So let's try to assume the role dev user now. Same thing, I'm just change it dev-user, and then the session name dev-user, and exactly the same commands I'm going to reuse it. So now if I try to do AWS IAM list groups as an user, I have the permission for it, and then I have the option for getting the result of what are all the options available as the user. So is it clear so far? Okay. So next thing can come up is that do I need everything as a specific JSON, right? So when we tried configuring the credentials, like when I did AWS configure, we saw one of the option as the output format, and this output format by default is going to be JSON, and that's the reason when we execute this command, right? Sorry, list groups. So we got the specific part as the JSON output. So it also supports various other formats as well. So again, I'm going to use the list groups, but instead of that, let me ask for help. And I'm interested towards the output section. So if I do this, then you can see that there are like one, yes, it says it's use option. So maybe we can do, it's a default option only. So if I do like hyphen output, and then if I give it as a text, then it's going to give you as a plain text. So maybe you want to store it in a notepad or something, then you can do it. There is one more option available for output, which is going to be table. So it is going to give you in a table structure. So depends on your use case. Do you need it in a table format? Do you need it in a JSON format, or do you need a text? You can modify the command parameter to get it sorted. But then the default is going to be the JSON part. Okay, so there is one more thing which comes is where this credentials is being getting stored, right? So if you go into the your home directory, and then you would be having a folder called AWS, and this is where all your credentials is going to get stored. So you have the config, and then you have the credentials. So whichever I'm doing as a assumed role and stuff, so that's going to get stored under the file credentials. I'm not opening that file now because of the sensitivity of it. But then in your local machine, once you do the part, then do it. So for the question of Alfada Sahul Ahmad, can we assume a role for any AWS service instead of a user? Yeah, you can assume any service. So whenever you create a role, right? So that's not belongs to the IAM as a concept. Sorry, the CLA as a concept. But then just for a quick thing, so when you do a create role, then it's going to ask you for like what the role is going to be used for. So if you're going to use for an IAM user, you would be choosing this specific option, AWS account. If you're going to use it for a specific service like EC2, S3, or any of the service, then that's going to be, you're going to choose the specific AWS service. And then what service is going to be used? Is it Lambda? Is it going to be an EC2? What this role will be consumed by which service? But the concept remains same, command remains same. Just that at the time of creation of the role, you would be choosing the different options, alpha. Does it answer your question? I hope yes. We'll proceed with it. So there can be scenarios where you as a user would be need to deal with multiple um, different parts, right? So that's where it comes as a profile piece comes into picture. So ideally, what you would do is I will uh, I will show you in the notepad maybe for now, and then you can try to self explore more on it, like how it would look like. So within the uh, this credentials file, right? So if I open this credentials file, so this is going to consist of the information of something called as profile. So that is going to be default profile, and then there is going to be option as the profile name. Like say I can use something like dev-user for unique identification, and then the credentials would get followed by. So by default, whenever you do something like AWS commands, then it's going to take you the profile of the default one, right? It's not going to take the profile of the specific use case. So what we are going to do now is, since we have two different roles, and then it's going to be like cumbersome, like each time I want to unset it and then assume the role, perform the S3, and then unset it, assume the role, and then perform IAM related task. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take an approach of profile, so that to make the smooth workflow, as a same user, we can run both the commands using the profile part. So again, let's do one thing, which is let's see what identity I am using, right? So currently it's been considered as dev-user. So what I'm going to do is, let me unset all the values, or unset all the profile and credentials part. So I'm just using the unset access key ID, secret access key, and everything. I'm unsetting it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to again set my credentials of this the test user which I have. So now if I do with STS get caller identity, now you see that I'm going to use this MDU demo part. So to do this, what I'm going to do, like how to set the credentials, right? As I said, uh, to set the profile level credentials, you need to add the credentials piece within the brackets as the within this specific file credentials, right? So what I'm going to do is I will be using the specific part, but then a quick uh, thing, which is this specific command I'm going to run. Again, I will give you the specific values, like what I'm doing it, post part of it. And So here, if you see, I'm using this AWS STS assume role, and then I'm calling as the profile dev, which might not be needed in our use case. So I'll just use this because I can run from the default role as well, because as an MDU, and then I'm passing the role ARN, which is the S3 admin, and then I'm giving a session name for it. It can be any name, it can be Vasan, it can be anything, and then I'm getting the credentials and then storing it as a variable 1, 2, and 3. And then what I'm doing is I'm again using the scripting part to read it and then say the first one value is assigned as access key ID, the second value of the output is assigned as secret access key, and then the third one from the output would be assigned to the variable name session token. And then what I'm doing is I'm using the AWS configure command and then saying that, okay, for the profile name S3FN admin, use the specific value which you retrieved, which is access key ID. And then I'm repeating the same steps for the secret access key, and then the same steps for the session token file, right? So now what I'm going to do is, let's see if it works, right? Because I'm just being tactical. Just give me a minute, because we have this read and one. I don't think we need it here, because all we do is we are just setting it and then the set profile being that. So if I do this and what it says here as well, it had something called dev at the end. Maybe I'll just sorry, there might be some issue with the copy paste. Apologies. Give me a minute, I'm just fetching the values. All these commands I will be sharing post the session so that you guys have it handy. Okay, so it's the same command, I just copy pasted. So now if you see, I have stored this in the profile name called S3FN admin. So now if I run something as the get access identity, right, which we spoke about. So if I do just get caller identity, then AWS is going to treat me as the default MDU admin. Whereas if I pass something as profile as a parameter, and then if I say treat the profile as S3 admin, then you would see that it would be taking the user detail as S3 admin. So now if I do the same thing for the dev part, let's say the dev user, let me use the same command. So here I just change the profile value from S3 admin to dev-user, and then also the assumed role value to the dev-user. And if I do this, then it's going to create a separate file for the dev-user, the profile for dev-user. And if I do this now, then you can see that it's going to treat me as the dev-user part. So with the help of the profile part, now I can just say, like, I want to list all the S3, then I can say hyphen profile and then use the profile of admin. Then I can fetch all the values with the help of automation. Same way, if I want to list all the let's say I am, yeah, so list all the groups, and then I can say profile followed by the profile name which we gave, right, which is dev user. It's a unique ID when you set the value. So then it's going to give you all the format as part of the JSON part. So this would come very handy when you have deal with multiple roles, and profile would be the best use case, so that you don't need to unset, set, and do the long-term part. Yeah, so is it everything clear so far? And for the question of the token expiry of the assume role, that's going to vary from account to account. I think minimum is 15 minutes or something, and then maximum it can get extended. Is one user is restricted to use one role? No. So ideally, if you see in terms of the IAM core concepts, right? So if I go back to the IAM concepts, so you have yeah, so you have group map the groups with the policies, and then you can say that the same groups can have multiple users. So if the group is having the policy to assume a role, then a number of users can assume the same role. So it's not that one user is restricted to use only one role. A same user can. So even in our example, we tried assuming one user assumed multiple roles, and then we handled it using the profile value, right? So it can be the case like a multiple user can assume the same role, or a single user can assume multiple roles as well. Does it answer your question, Prakash? Cool. So those things, the things which we cleared. So CLI profile we saw, the role and part, and the output formats we have seen. There are other multiple options available. I would highly recommend in terms of going through the documentation, whichever based on your use case piece. Again, the one thing which you want to keep in mind whenever you do the get call actions, right, or like listing of anything, always remember something called as the pagination. That's very, very important. You need to consider. If you're not considering it, it can trick you for your automation part. So when I say what is pagination is, so let's say you go into the console, and so by default, it says, let's say, just give me a minute. Sorry for that. So these are short-lived credentials. So when I started, I had the valid credentials. As we speak, the credentials vanish. So best practice for security practice which followed. So what I was saying is, so let's say, so here I have only 10 users, right? So even if I go with roles, maybe you could see that I have like we have totally 78 roles part of it. And then to list all the users, I need to go each and every number, right? The first page, second page, third page. So the same thing would apply when it comes to CLI as well, which is when you fetch the queries, then it can give you the maximum number of records at one call. And then if you need it, you need to do a follow-up part. So that's something you want to keep in mind whenever you do an automation, either in CLI or even the SDK, which we'll see in the next session. So there is going to be something called as a token value if it consists of more than one. And then as a follow-up, you would need to provide the token code. So maybe we can see this one as an example. So we have, let's take an AWS IAM, and let's go for the documentation, right? So AWS, and then you would go with the IAM service, and then what we're trying to do, we are trying to do a listing all the roles. So if I do list roles, so this is going to be the command to be used. So if I do AWS IAM list roles, and then I need to use the profile. We are going to use the profile of dev-user, and if you do this, then you can see that it's going to give us all the part as part of the JSON. And then if you come down, either it can give you all the values at once, or if the data is like too much, at the end it's going to give you the token value. So maybe if I bring it down with the risk cost, maybe I will just do a grep to see if it give the value, right? So maybe it gives you all the ones. I think it also consists of something called as max values. So if I see with list roles, and then if I check with max items, let's say we keep it as max items as 10, for example. Let's try to do that. We need to use -max items 10. Then it's going to give you the first 10 values, and then for the next 10 you might need to do the next token. So you got it right. So whenever you're going to create as a page, you are going to do it. So by default, so in this case, if I am, it didn't go with the next page. But for certain APIs, AWS itself limit at first API call, it can give you only like 50 calls or 20 calls based on the API as a default value. So always you need to check in an automation, does it consist of this specific next token in your call? And then if it has a next token in it, then you need to see like what is the value I need to use it for getting the next token, right? So if we do with you have starting token, let me see if I have basically we need to go through the documentation part, and then you see that the max item that is going to give you the next token, and then we need to pass it as starting token, and then we need to provide the value of next token in it. So instead of maybe I can keep max tokens, and then I need to use starting token and then the value. So now it's going to fetch you the next set of records. So first it gave you the first 10 users, and then it gives you the next 20. So whenever you are automating it using the CLI, always best practice is that your account might be having only 5 records, 5 resources, right? But then still make it as a best practice to look for, does this record consist of next token in it? It can be done with scripting. If you're using bash, then you would use if else logic, right? You check for the values, does it consider next token? If it considers next token, then you need to do a follow-up API call with the starting token value get passed. So be careful on that part, because else it's going to be like you want to do an automation for cleanup of IAM user, but then you would do only for first 10 users, and then you get left out, and you might not achieve the cost optimization or security goal which you are planning to do it. So this is a bit overlooked because there can be scenarios like when you try to automate it, you would start with like 5 EC2 instance at first, and then as the organization grow, then you might hit the part, and then you would need to rework on it. So always keep in mind of this next token and starting token, right? So you can also use there is a tool called JQ, which will becomes very handy whenever we talk about JSON, right? So let's say I want to do this the profile of let's say I want to use a profile dev-user, and then let's say I want to just get the role name or something. For example, I just need to know the role name of it, right? Then you can pipeline this into JQ dot, and then that's going to give you the JSON value, or like maybe for example I can just use like JQ dot next token. I think that will give you the value. So it should be, yeah. So you can read the JSON information. So the JQ is something you can, as a separate tooling, you install in your system, and then you pass the output which you receive as a JSON to this one, and then you can retrieve it. So that comes very handy. So even for example, let's say I want only the path, so we install this one with the next token, right? So I would let you to experiment on this one JQ as a tooling. So this is more of giving you context, right? So let's say I want all the roles to be listed. So I can just say dot roles, then it will give me the entire array of roles, and then you take it from that. So from roles, maybe I need all the path. Then you can use the wildcard and then fetch the path. So and then from here you can read like the service consisting of the specific action is just role. So it's up to your use case. you all we do is like using the APIs, retrieve the information, and then you pass it on. So you can also do series of actions, store it in a bash file, and then script it out. So I think I pretty much covered about the CLI as a tooling and the best practices that to be followed when it comes to like the credentials management and stuff. I think we also reached almost to the end of the session. So any questions so far? Anyone? Cool. So next week, what we're planning to do is about AWS SDK, how we can use like major predominant languages used are like Python, Moto 3, and then the another one which we have was the Node.js version 3, which is like a more optimized one. So, and then how we can incorporate it with Lambda, and then syncing up with event trigger for automations part. So that would be the basic one. So the AWS CDK, it's not generally meant for retrieval of information. It's generally meant for resource creation more actively, for infra creation part. uh, I have heard that it's used under layer of cloud formation, and sometimes it creates conflict or complexity of using it longer time. But the use case of CDK is something completely different part of it. Yeah, so it's more like an infra code approach or part of it. Yeah, it's mainly used for infra creation, whereas the SDK and the SDKs and CLI are meant for like more day-to-day activity of automations. And if you are someone in your role, you are getting bored, right? Like my organization is giving to do this like autonomous quick ops task, and those kind of quick ops tasks can be automated using CLI and SDK at ease with this help of CLI and SDK, if you know how to do it. Yeah, so thanks, Lokesh, for sharing the LinkedIn handle. So if you have any follow-up questions for your use case, do feel free to ping me. I'm happy to assist on that part.
Thanks, Vasan, for the wonderful session on AWS CLI. So I hope like everyone would have got a good understanding of what CLI is and how and when should we use CLI. So we are now open to few questions. So guys, if you have any questions, post it in the chat. Vasan will be answering those. Mm. So
how it is used in real world projects daily, we'll be calling the STS. Yeah, so first step would be calling the STS, because if you see in terms of organization setup, right? So as an user, you won't be having directly any read access or write access. So best practice is like you as a user, you have the permission to assume the role which can give you the permissions to perform your operations. So yeah, so first thing you would start with STS to assume the role which has the permissions, and then you proceed with the automations aspect. So that's how the real world setup would look like. And that's exactly focused on today's session, not just because AWS CLI documentation is available, it sounds pretty easy, right? But then what majorly people would miss is that how it is done in the real world, or in the in the closed environment. Where do you start with? And then understanding the specific role and how to deal with multiple profiles. That's where the actual complexity adds, and a huge pain cost to do it. So how can you do the automation? So whatever we showed today, it's all comes under the bash scripting part. So if you just store the sequence of commands in a .sh file and then execute it, then it's going to the automation part. And then if you build up with your Linux skills, you set a cron tab, then the same automation is going to occur without your presence on a regular basis. So it depends on like how we are going to set it up, because if you want to use with the pipeline, and then still it provides you the cron tab part, right, which runs the executing part. So whatever we store as a single command, it's nothing but a bash command. So if you store it in a .sh and then you schedule it to execute in a sequence, it's going to work for it. Like for example, as I said, one use case is told, right, you read the IAM part, see like when the user logged in as an admin, and then you build your custom logic to say like if it's not more than 30 days of login, then delete that user. So here we're talking about one user of retrieving the users, two reading the JSON of lost login time, and then third in terms of building a custom logic to see whether the time is like from current date is it older than 30 days, and then fifth sequence would be like deleting operations for that specific user. So 4 line of commands, you put it in sh, schedule it for every 1 month, then your cleanup activity would be like on. Yeah, Vishnu, that's exactly what I was trying to explain. Thanks. So again, these questions are like pretty much straightforward answered by ChatGPT as well, if you tried using it. So now you know the concept, you got the fundamentals, like how to deal with profiles and credentials, and how to read the documentation, and how to go through the steps it's being told. So now you have the fundamental concept. Now come up with your use case and ask the Gen AI part, then that would make your life more easy, and you can kickstart your automation journey right now. It's not much complex as it sounds like at all.
That's true. So, any more questions? Okay, if not, there is one question.
Or maybe it's out of context of today's session for AWS Solution Architect exam. If you need any specific guidance, do reach out to me over LinkedIn. Happy to assist. But for now, for time constraint, we'll stick with the agenda. Thanks.
Yes. So, thank you, Vasan, for your wonderful session. I hope all the guys participated today, like got something out of it. So keep looking for the second session, which will be on the coming week, and also for the hands-on challenge, which will be posting in the upcoming days. So I hope everyone finds these sessions interesting and useful for your day-to-day work. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Vasan.
Thanks. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.